everyone, I am here to do my first bullet journal video of 2018. I can't believe how long it's been since my last bullet journal video, but I really needed to take a break from them, so I'm excited to be back, and I've got tons of ideas from you guys from the last year. So if you've clicked on this video, as you'll know, it will be celestial space themed bullet journal ideas. Now, I am going to be trying something new. As I mentioned, if you saw my channel updates, I'm going to be doing Plan With Me's based off of themes instead of doing monthly Plan With Me's, which means I can give you more Plan With Me's in a month. Since these videos are probably going to be very long, I'm going to break them into two parts. So if you're watching this video, this part is going to be the Plan With Me based off of my previous pages that I used to do in my journal. And so they're all going to be designs for your bullet journal that are space and star themed. I'm going to go over the monthly pages, the opener page that I used to do, and I'm going to do probably 2 or 3 different designs for the opener page. I'm also going to go over a tracker, the memories. For this particular video, I'm going to make a really beautiful lunar calendar in case you'd like to include that in your bullet journals. And then I'm going to do a gratitude log and a weekly spread. So those are the things that I'm going to go over. I'm going to decorate pages with this theme in mind. And then you can either follow along step by step, and I'll teach you which materials I use and how I did each of the pages so you can do it yourself. Or if you would like to purchase the pages, all of these pages will be available in my Etsy shop. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about materials. I'm working on an Arches hot press watercolor paper. If you want to use a cold press, that is quite alright, but the reason why I use hot press is because the paper is smoother and it still handles the watercolors very well and allows them to do their thing, but it makes it much easier when I'm using pen and ink to make a smoother finish on my text. So that's why I prefer the hot press paper. It works well with both pen and ink and watercolors. I am using my Winsor Newton watercolors. You can see my nice messy palette here. I love Winsor Newton. It's my favorite. I keep all of my watercolors in a nice little baggie. Easy to grab on the go, but I do keep a nice palette with different color ranges and color palettes that I use. So that's that. I'm going to be using my brushes here. Most likely I will be using these 4. These are my 4 favorite brushes, and 2 of them are the cheapy Walmart, just straight out of the assorted package, and then these 2 are nicer watercolor fine tipped 0 and 000 brushes. This little one is great for tiny details, and the longer one is great for doing long, small, thin lines. So I really like that one as well. If you're interested in learning more about painting details, I will have a new watercolor painting video that's going to focus just on painting details coming next week. As far as pens go, I use microns, and then I'm also going to be using these lovely Pigment by Sakura, and they're just, I have a fine tip and then I have this medium point tip that are brush pens. I love these. I'm going to be ordering more of these because I just absolutely love them. And then depending on how it goes, I may end up using, I think I showed the microns, and then these brushes, these pens I really love. They're Papermate. I'm not sure if they're archival or not, and I usually tend to try to use archival things in my journals because I want them to stay for a very long time. But I just love these felt tip pens. They're so easy to use. They come in a great variety of colors, and they look really great on the white paper. So I might end up using a couple of these just for a couple of little accents, especially since this is more for you guys than it is for my personal journal. Oh, and then to finish off the tiny little details at the end, I'm going to be using my favorite Soufflé Sakura white gel pen. I love these things, and it's nice to add little things on at the end, so you'll be seeing that as well. I also have been doing a lot more white detailing on my painting. I may still use the white gel pen quite a bit, but I've been using just gouache straight from the tube, white, to do my details at the end to try to keep everything strictly watercolors. That's just in my paintings though, so for my bullet journal I'll probably still use the gel pen, but I may still use the gouache as well, so I'll show that to you so that you see it. I'm going to be using a little bit of masking fluid. I use Winsor Newton watercolor masking fluid. This stuff is freaking amazing and it saves me so much time. So I'm going to be using that. And then to protect my brushes from getting all disgusting and nasty, I have learned a new tip that if you cover your brush in Dawn soap and then dip it in the masking fluid and use it, it still works the same and you save your brushes. You can easily wash off the masking fluid without it ruining the brush. This has been absolutely life-changing, so I'm very happy to pass it along to you. And you may see me dip my paintbrush in some orange Dawn soap, and that's just to keep the brush from getting damaged from the masking fluid. After the masking fluid dries and we paint over and I need to remove it, I believe this is called a rubber eraser. I haven't had to buy one in a really long time, like since college. Almost 10 years I've had this thing. So this is just to remove the masking fluid, and it makes it much easier. You can do it with a regular eraser as well, but you're more likely to smudge and make mistakes with a regular eraser, so a rubber eraser works perfectly for the masking fluid. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The first design I'm going to do is a full moon design. And this is going to be really simple, so easy for you to follow along and do yourself. All you have to do is just make sure that you have the supplies. I'm using this roll of painter's tape just so I can get a nice perfect circle. Obviously you can use anything that's round to do this part. After using the painter's tape to make a circle, I'm now using the masking fluid, and as you can see, I've dipped my brush in the Dawn soap that I mentioned. I'm using the masking fluid to make the outline of the circle. It'll make it easier for me to do washes, and it'll still leave a nice clean line. I also have left a couple of dots because I want there to be some white dots in my moon. I'm obviously not going for a totally realistic moon. I'm doing blues and purples, a nice wash, and then I'm going to add in some salt, which I forgot to mention in my materials, but I'm just using basic table salt. This now has to sit and dry, and while that sits and dries, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick wash across the bottom as a backdrop for my text. Now that everything is nice and dry, which took about an hour, I'm going to remove the masking fluid with the rubber eraser and then just tighten up a couple of the little lines that didn't come out perfectly smooth like I wanted them to. After tightening up the lines and putting in the white dots, I now am going to add the text, and I do apologize. I didn't realize that my camera had stopped recording, so unfortunately I missed the first part of the text here, but I used the medium point brush pen to do the basic text, and then right now I'm using the fine tipped brush pen to go ahead and finish off the tiny little details. And that is all finished. Like I said, very simple. Now we're going to move on to something that's a little bit more complicated, but much more my style. I'm going to do a star and moon design with lots of little details, which is my favorite. If you know me and you know my channel, you know I love the details. So this one is going to take a lot longer. I spent a lot of time sketching out exactly what I wanted because this is not something that I typically draw, and I wanted to make sure I had everything looking nice and balanced and even. And I do end up changing the design a couple of times, so it went through a little bit of a process there as far as getting the design right. Now when I'm ready to ink, I'm using the felt tip Papermate pen I was talking about earlier that I absolutely love. Again, I'm not sure if it's archival, but I just love it, and for this piece it works really well. This is not something that I necessarily need to stay archival, since I'm mostly using it for a digital copy. Then I'm using the finer tipped microns for the smaller details. Gotta love the dots, that's my favorite, putting little dots in everywhere, and finishing up the design. Obviously, you can make this design anything you want, and I encourage you to do your own design. For me, this piece was a lot of fun to work on, and I hope you enjoy it. Like I said before, I will have these designs available in my Etsy shop. So if you don't feel like this is something that you could possibly do, then you can go ahead and purchase this piece right here for your bullet journals. When you're starting to draw little details, if it does seem a little bit too complicated to you, I would recommend trying to draw it out in pencil first and then doing the ink. And then over time, you'll gradually get more and more confident with the ink. And the best thing to do is just to keep practicing. After finishing up all the inking details, I then decided I was going to add in some gold pigment. So I got out my Winsor & Newton gold ink, which unfortunately is going bad, so I had to add some water to it to get it reactivating there. But I went ahead and added in gold details to the eye and a little bit to the sun. You can see I kind of changed work environments because I did take a break from working on this piece because my hand was really tired after doing all the little tiny inking details. So yeah, I went ahead and filled in bits of the sun. If I still had some Winsor Newton silver ink, I would go ahead and do the moon in silver, just because I think that would be a really nice contrast, but I'm actually out of the silver ink right now. So I just went ahead and did a little bit of gold just to kind of tie it together and give it a little bit of color. Overall, I'm really happy with how this came out. I'm now going to use my brush pens to finish off the month. I'm adding the month of February. I will have this available in my Etsy shop as a blank page so that you can fill in whatever month you want. And then I'll also have the February page available at a discounted rate since it only works for the month of February. Now we're going to move on to the monthly page. The hardest part of the monthly page is getting all the boxes to be cohesive and relatively evenly spaced. I try to get it as close as possible, but it's not always exact because the stencil that I use for the outside is not exact. But I like the way it looks, and I think this page came out pretty good, and I was able to make it nice and basic with 5 weeks across, so you don't have to double up any days, and you can fill it out for whichever month you want. Across the bottom, I always do my goals for the month, and then I break those goals down into tactics, and then the tactics will then become the weekly goals. So I went ahead and did that across the bottom with some stars, which went kind of fast, but you were able to see the finished product. Now I'm adding in February with some nice little blocky text with some extra stars across the top and little starlights to decorate. As I mentioned before, the blank template will be available as well as the finished decorated template for February. And that page is done. Really easy. Now we are going to move on to the tracker, which is one of my favorite pages in my bullet journal. And I'm going to leave lots of empty space for you guys to fill in whatever you would track. Typically, I have about 15 things that I track throughout a month. So I went ahead and left 15 spaces, but I left room for you to add more if you need it. After where I would put the different activities that I want to track, I would actually put a mood chart as well. But since that's not everybody's cup of tea, I'm going to leave it blank, but there is room for you to put a mood chart if you really want one. And then across the bottom, if you're not familiar with my previous trackers, I do on those 3 lines put movies watched, video games played, and books read, which are the 3 things that I like to list out and track. I left it blank so that you guys can fill in whatever you want. Maybe you don't play video games or you want to track something else instead. So I left it open for whatever you're looking for. Next, we're going to move on to the memories page. Really, really simple. Kept it very, very, very simple. Just put a star liner across the bottom, and it's plenty of space for you to put notes and or memories. Lastly was the gratitude page, and I wanted the lines to be really evenly spaced, and I didn't want to take the time to measure that all out with a ruler. So all that I did is I used a lined paper, and I'm just showing you that I copied the lined paper onto a blank sheet of paper so that my lines would be correct. I did this off camera because I used a light box to do it, and the light box doesn't fit underneath my camera setup, so it would have been impossible to film it. So I just did that off camera, and that's how I got my lines evenly spaced. Now I'm just adding stars on opposite sides, and of course Christopher wants to get across the screen, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the days in these stars. I left there with 31 lines so that you can use this gratitude log on any month, even if it has 31 days. And then I went across the outside, put a little rocket ship for fun, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add in some stars across the top. Let me tell you, after finishing this page, I was really good at drawing stars. And then I'm going to go ahead and put constellations all around the outside of the paper. So I wanted to decorate it a little bit more than some of the other pages that I had gone through. I wanted to keep them as simple as possible. Obviously, I don't have the constellations memorized, so you can see that I'm pulling up on my phone the different constellations that I wanted to use, and then they can be at least semi-accurate. Another idea I had for this page that I didn't end up drawing, but for you guys, if you're doing it yourself, is little UFOs or aliens or other spaceships to go around the edges. That could be a cute idea as well. But I thought the constellations would go over better, so I did that. And now this page is all finished. Next up is the Lunar Calendar. This is just a little add-on for you guys if you want to purchase the package. I thought it would be nice to have a little Lunar Calendar for 2018. Something super easy to make if you want to do it yourself as well. I'm going to use the same technique that I used for the moon in the beginning. I'm just not going to use masking fluid this time, and I'm going to try to do a more natural looking moon. So I'm just using black watercolor and making it look a little bit more natural. You can say it came out a little rough. This is something that I'll fix up in Photoshop. I didn't want to use the masking fluid for this one because I just didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like waiting for it to dry, honestly. Now I'm filling out each month, and the way I'm going to do my lunar calendar is just by what moons are happening in that month. So some will have more and some will have less. I also added in meteor showers since I found somebody else's lunar calendar that added that in, and I thought it was really cool. The other thing I noticed across other lunar calendars is some people added in the solstices and eclipses as well. I left those out just because that's not something that I necessarily want to have in my lunar calendar, but it is also an option to have that in your calendar as well, if that's something you want to keep track of and know. So this actually ended up taking quite a lot of time, not only because of planning and getting it to look cohesive. Drawing all those little circles with all those little details just took forever. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this play through. Really simple, very repetitive, but time consuming. And just a note on materials, I am using both the Papermate felt tip pen and the Micron, 005 Micron. Lastly, I'm going to finish off this page by putting a little key at the bottom. I did make a mistake on the key, so I'm going to have to fix that in Photoshop, but it was nice to put a little key at the bottom, and I did forget about it, which is why the background changed. After that, I'm moving on to the last pages that I'm going to do today. I kept them very, very, very simple so that they're really easy for you to go ahead and do in your bullet journals if you don't want to purchase the ones that I made. I'm going to do the weekly spread. So I'm making nice big headers because I wanted them to match the opener, the full moon opener. So I have week number, and then you can fill in whatever number week it is for you. I left a spot for weekly goals because I always put my weekly goals, which like I mentioned before are my tactics from the monthly page. Then went ahead and did the swashes of blue and purple watercolor mixed together, and then used my brush pen to go ahead and build out blocky letters. And you'll see I made a mistake on Wednesday. I will also fix that in Photoshop. And then lastly, I did use the white gel pen to go ahead and make little stars across the banners. It doesn't show super well on this camera, but the white stars did dry white, and then when I scan them in, they really show up on the scanner. And that is it. Really simple double page spread, and it's really cute, I think. I love this font. It's super easy, especially if calligraphy is usually very difficult for you. This font's really easy to learn, especially if you have a nice brush pen. Alright, so that is the finished video for part 1 of the Celestial designs. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do give it a like. Here's all the finished designs, and you can also see them available on my Etsy shop by the end of the week. I'm going to go ahead and scan them in, fix them up in Photoshop, and make them available by Friday. On Thursday, you will be getting part 2 of the Celestial designs, and that's when I'll go back to doing my regular headers and icons video, and they're going to be space and celestial themed, so get ready for some UFOs and some rocket ships and some stars, all different headers, banners, and icon ideas. And then those will also be available on my Etsy shop by Friday. So I'm really excited to share part 2 with you. I hope that you subscribe and follow along and check out that video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, remember to live, love, and travel on. Bye!